Our guest joining us in studio. The last time he was here, we were talking about an issue that I guess is controversial to some people out there who never want to pay more money. Well, nobody wants to pay more for anything. We'll get to that at some point during the show today. Kelton Hatch is joining us from Idaho Fish and Game, and we'll talk about that legislative issue coming up in a few minutes. But first of all, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Glad
You,
to be back.
you know exactly what I'm talking about, but
I do.
we'll, we'll hear about it before the end of the program.
And it's been going very well.
And we have a commission meeting coming up.
We do. We've got a commission meeting actually going on today. We had public testimony last night, and today that they're in Boise. It's a little bit late for folks that didn't know about it, but we're setting big game seasons over there today and the Chinook seasons. And so if you have some time or if you're in the Boise area, headed that area, you can swing in or be prepared to. Hopefully, this next week we have all the changes. The big changes we're looking at doing is we're probably going to, we're proposing from our public meetings to drop all either sex hunts for youth um, in 48, 49, 56. We had some mortality over in eastern Idaho on fawns, and we had a lot up in the Wood River Valley on fawns. And we're going to drop it. We didn't harvest a ton of does on that hunt, but there's 150 in each of those units, and we thought we would. And we didn't have any winter kill to say over in 56. However, over in Pocatello area, there was quite a bit, and they were dropping all of theirs, and so we didn't want 56 just hanging out, being the only place. We was afraid we could get more impacts from a lot more hunters over there, and so that's probably the biggest one. We're looking at also increasing some tags down south for elk and up north in 49 for elk, and so we'll see how that goes through the commission meeting today, and we should know more about it next month.
And then you have a comment here too, or comments on migratory birds needed. This is we need to point this out. You're constantly looking for public input.
Well, it is. The thing is people get ticked off at the way things are running, or they don't like. Well, get involved. Get involved. I mean, we try to have these public meetings. We're getting ready to do the scoping for fisheries for our possible changes. If you're interested in getting involved, I mean, you don't like the way things are going, give us a call, talk to us, come to one of these public meetings. Online right now for waterfowl, we've got a migratory bird comments. We're trying to figure out what will how if there's any changes people want to see in waterfowl hunting. We're also scoping sandhill crane hunting and dove and crow hunting. You can just go online to fishandgame.idaho.gov, click on the survey, go in there and fill it out, and be part of the solution.
You know, you mentioned this. There's a fellow who lives in our listening area, and he grew up in my hometown, and he asked me one day via a message, I guess email, if I recalled his uncle, and his uncle used to actually love blackbird pie. I knew his uncle because I remember his uncle commenting about that. A lot of these birds can be prepared in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I've never eaten a blackbird there, Bill, but I'm sure if you're hungry enough and you know how to cook it, it'd be good table fare.
In fact, well, my brother was working at a restaurant when he was in high school, and old Ned happened to be working out back cleaning some ice and snow, and the two of them got talking. My brother was frustrated by all of the blackbirds trying to get into the garbage bin
Yeah.
outside the dumpster, and he said, "Well, you can trap them and make blackbird pie." And then he gave my brother a whole dissertation on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, with a little gravy, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, anything's good with cooked in olive oil and garlic and dipped in gravy.
Speaking of good food, deer. You want to mention deer counts today too, as
You
well.
know, it's been amazing. W- we, Sometimes people don't understand how much we don't get a fly 54 every year or 55. These units down south, we fly them about every 5 years. And the biggest reason for that, since I've been working for the department for about 14 years now and moved into the Magic Valley then. And when we first started flying, it was running us about $400 an hour to fly. Now we're at we're at $1,000 an hour. And we put in a 60-hour flight down south to fly 54 and 55. And since our last count down there, we have had an increase of almost 1,300 deer in 54, a little over 1,300, and about that many also in 55. And so uh, we had good winter survival down there this year. We had good fat on rump fat on all the does when we were radio calling 'em. We've had uh, I don't know that we've had any mortality from malnutrition down there this year. I can't think of any on any of our reports that I've seen from malnutrition. We've had some accidental deaths from the radio collared deer or predation um, down there, but deer numbers are growing well, and it was good to see an upward tick in deer, moose, and elk all in all that area.
And this, I saw this story a couple of weeks ago where you can literally fly over in a chopper and then you shoot a net down, right, and over the top of an elk, and then you can quickly put the collar on it.
And that's we did some of that with our deer over here this year. We have drive nets at first that we try to if we got herds of deer that are close, and we'll drive them into the nets, and then we've got crews, and you'll grab a hold of the deer, and we'll hold them, put the radio collars on them. We usually process the deer takes less than 5 minutes. We take body measurements. We put the radio collar on. Some of the does we bleed. Some of them to get blood samples if they're pregnant. Others we do ultrasounds on, and we do rump fat measurements and things like that to get overall body condition. And our goal is to get them in and out as quick as possible. We always do some net gunning just because we can't get the full sample size without driving the deer too far sometimes. And so, yeah, we've got a gunner that hangs out of the helicopter in a harness, and they will shoot a 15 by 15, close to about that size, 10 to 15 by 15 net. Um, it's got heavy weights in the corners, a four-barreled gun, and so when it goes off, it throws these weights out in different directions. You kind of put it like the bottom of a cone, one of those cones that you set up on the road.
Hmm.
So it's kind of shaped like that, and it shoots that out. And we do that on elk and mule deer both, and we've got quite a few deer and elk radio collared in this part of the state.
And our guest in the studio is Kelton Hatch. He's here from Idaho Fish and Game. We're at 51 right now at 9:14. Bill Cutley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We have a caller with us. We're going to take a quick call in
Great,
this
sounds good.
segment of the program. We still have a lot of business to cover too as well. Caller, you're up next and you're on the air. Caller, good morning. That might be what they call one of those butt dials by the sounds of things.
Yeah, it was scratchy, whatever it was.
We've been talking a little bit about animals, but also road conditions in some places are still rough because look, it's been 70 degrees for a couple of days. On the other hand, it's not quite so nice up in the hills, South Hills specifically.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw this out there. The BLM had sent out a note to me the other day. I know that some of you have probably picked it up on some of the other news outlets, but I wanted to let people know that the roads up Cottonwood and Indian Springs and Dry Creek and all those still are gated. Um, and the reason being is because of all the rain we've had and snow this winter, the roads haven't dried out, and so they're going to extend the seasonal closure just to avoid road damage. It's kind of a day-to-day thing. I know that there are people up there checking it out all the time, and as soon as the roads get into passable condition, they'll open those gates up. But they're supposed to have opened on the 15th, and I know a lot of people are ready to get out and
Yeah.
enjoy the weather, and so they probably went up there and were a little bit upset, and so just to pass that around to let folks know that they did send out a note that they were going to keep them closed just for road conditions.
I saw a picture. I was looking at a website out of Cody, Wyoming the other day, and the weather there was very similar to what we had, maybe even colder
Hmm.
this year. But they had a lot of snow, and there was a picture of a road on the website, and there was a person standing there to give you an idea what it was like, what the conditions were like. Still a lot of snow on the road, and then there were multiple trees down across the road because just the snowpack and the weight
Yeah.
this year brought a lot of them down.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see that once we get up onto the forest. These BLM closures, it's mostly heavy drifts still, and then some road erosion from all in some of the lower areas, and so things like that. But yeah, that's gonna these big heavy winters like this, in some of the parts of this region, we were over 150% of precip, and so it'll change things a little bit.
And then you've also wanted to mention sage grouse as well this morning.
Yeah, this is fun. One of these days, Bill, I'm gonna have to get a hold of you and to drag you out to the desert. You're used to getting up in the morning, but go out there. Sage grouse are on leks right now,
Mhm.
and what leks are is the breeding grounds. We try to count or look at about 500, little over 500 different leks in just the Magic Valley. And what these leks give us an indicator of is uh, the overall population of. We've got several ways we monitor. We do check stations during our hunt. We have a bunch of radio collared ones that we watch, and we check out nest success. We take wings from the hunting season, and we can age to see how many of the young of the year were shot in the harvest or taken in the harvest, or how many of the birds that were killed were older, and we can kind of take those numbers and determine how good the nesting success was. And then this is another way we go out and we count the number of males on the leks. Um, these leks are dancing grounds. It's usually a high spot that doesn't have a lot of other brush around. The males go out and strut their stuff and try to win the affections of the females. And that's going on right now. We'll be counting each of these leks 4 times over the next month and a half. And so, if you can't sleep one morning, just jump in your truck and head out to the desert. And kind of the way you locate them, you can just stop along the edge of the road or find a high spot, and you can hear a popping sound, kind of it's a whoop, whoop, and you hear that sound in the distance, and you can take your binoculars and kind of look around, and there's a good chance you'll run into them.
And a site that is most people never get to see.
It is. It's phenomenal, and if you've never seen it, go online, Google sage grouse lek dance or dancing or sharptail. Sharptail are also doing the same thing. I love watching sharptail because they do a really fast beat with their feet. It's a lot more action than the sage grouse, but it's actually pretty cool to see.
We find it funny. It's part of their nature, is what.
It is, but there's nothing I like better than spring. Well, there is, but I mean, this is one of the things I like. This is getting up in the morning or enjoying these early mornings, just seeing, uh, things come to life in the spring, getting out and wandering around and getting to see sage grouse and sharptail and
Friend of
all those
mine
other things.
has a lot of turkey vulture in his neighborhood back east, and he
Hmm.
says when you see them soaring in the air, they look beautiful. And he says then when you see them actually walking on the ground, you think they're straight out of a cartoon.
You do exactly, and so, but this is a great time of year. A lot of people miss out on this time of year to get out. One thing to be aware though is tick season is upon us, and
Hmm.
so do a tick hunt when you get back, and make sure you don't have any extra passengers after you've been out wandering around the sagebrush.
We got more coming up with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. He'll take some of your telephone calls as well in the following segments. He's here for the hour. It's 9:20. We're at 51. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Kelton Hatch is joining us in the studio on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. He joins us on a monthly basis and sometimes more often from Idaho Fish and Game. We're at 52. Bill Colley with you on Top Story as well. And the telephone number, if you've got a question or comment related to Idaho Fish and Game, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. We'll open with a fishing update, though, first, and then move on from there.
Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. The water's running high, and so the creeks and streams are pretty rough and rugged
Mm-hmm.
right now. But our lakes are fishing well. If you're looking for some place to escape and go out and have some fun, Salmon Falls Creek usually in the spring is about as good as it gets. Along the shores and stuff like that, we get the ice is off and those rainbows are in looking for some chow, and they'll move into those shallows where the water's a little more clear sometimes, and a little more productivity for feed and things like that. But other places that you can hit that would be also good is I was going to try to find. I've got a list of them here. Um, is from our fisheries manager is um, Hagerman, Oster Ponds have been fishing really well, and down there at Riley Pond, Durkee's Lake, Filer Kids Pond, and the Filer Ponds down there, and Crystal Springs and Emerald Lake. All should be fishing really good. One thing you need to watch out for is Oakley and Salmon Falls and Magic are going to be really high this year. We're anticipating spills on the going over, and so It but I think it's gonna be a really good fishing year.
We have a photograph here in our studio of Paul Harvey wearing a top coat and a fedora
Oh,
fishing in the canyon.
yeah.
And I sent that to one of my old bosses the other day. My old boss, his favorite movie is A River Runs Through It.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
cool.
he loves to fish.
Yeah.
And he wrote back and he said, Paul Harvey wasn't a real fisherman. He's using a reel.
Well, he watched the river runs through it, and they're pretty hardcore fly fishermen in that show,
Yeah.
and so, but no, lots of fishing activity going on right now, and believe it or not, sturgeon fishing is really fishing really well right now, even with the high waters. These high waters kind of push these fish into moving around, looking for spawning areas, and so if you're looking for something to do, get out and go drown a worm.
We have a
Or, I guess if you're a real fisherman, according to your friend,
use
I'm
a
not
fly.
saying that I like bait dunking and I like fly fishing. If I it just depends on how active I wanna be.
Those guys who can tie their own flies, those are the guys that impress me. You're up next. You're on the air with Kelton Hatch. Go ahead.
Hey, Calvin, not to change the subject. Back to the big game and stuff. Is Idaho considering ever putting a season on shed hunting? We seem to have a lot of people out there pushing them early and tearing stuff up. Getting out there, and I just wondered if they considered it or kind of curtail the damage that's being done to the roads and whatnot, and the pressure on the animals. Thanks.
That's a great question. We've had a lot of comments on that this year. Utah put one in, Wyoming's got one. Eastern Idaho is getting pounded with non-residents coming into that area. We're actually getting some non-residents coming up into the Magic Valley starting to look for sheds. Every year it gets worse. It just blows me away how many people are out there doing this. I actually know that some people are actually quitting because it's getting so competitive, and we have issues with it all the time. People driving across, just out in the sagebrush, driving around instead of walking and things like that. And they are actually looking at one of our commissioners is proposing something on that today, from my understanding. They're going to be talking about that. If a person is for that, against it, you really need to get a hold of your commissioner and tell them your thoughts, and any information that you have on it. I know we actually put one of these in. Um, Before I worked for the department, I was over in eastern Idaho, and they installed a season over there after the winter of 92, 93, I think it was. And what happened is we just had a bunch of people that would sneak out and just go walking, and then they would find the antlers, they would cache them, GPS locate them, then go back and pick them up at the opening day of shed season. So the animals were still getting pushed pretty hard. Um, and so that's the hard part. It's so hard to legislate morality. Because I mean, people just it's human nature just to push things, I guess, as far as you can. And so, but yes, we are looking at it, and any information that you would like to share, please get a hold of us at our office. Talk to Daryl Mites or Jake Powell, or get a hold of the commissioner. Um, would appreciate it.
I want to thank him for the call. You mentioned sturgeon a moment ago. The Statesman is doing a weekly series, and yesterday's update was about sturgeon fishing and about the 7 footers people can catch. Now, uh, some of the photographs I see people swimming with sturgeon. Apparently, sturgeon aren't intimidated by people getting in the water with them.
Well, you can't take them out of the water. It's against the law to lift them out. Their bodies, they're so big and heavy. If you lift them out of the water, there's information that shows that you can actually damage internal organs and kill them because they're so big. And so part of the rules to salmon or sturgeon fishing is keeping the animal in the water. And so a lot of people like jumping in the water and putting their hands underneath them and kind of controlling them and taking photos with them after they catch them. But yeah, they're pretty amazing fish. You know, uh, a 5 and 6 footer can give you a good tug. When you catch those 7 to 9 footers and it's in this fast moving water, you need to be prepared. And then the other thing, circle hooks and things like that really, really help so that we don't get some deep hooks. Um, have a sliding weight on there, so if the hook does break off, that the weight will fall off of your line and the sturgeon won't be tethered to the ground. That's another issue we've had where we use these heavier weights um, to get the bait on the bottom. Well, the sturgeon will get a hold of them. The weight is hooked to the hook, um, and then the weight gets stuck in the rocks when they go down to feed, and then they get tethered and they can't move. And we've lost some sturgeon in the Magic Valley because of that. But if you put that sinker on a slider, so if the hook breaks off anywhere, that sinker just slides off of your line. It sure is a lot better, and the circle hooks keep it from hooking so deep.
We've got more coming up with Kelton Hatch. He's here until 10 o'clock this morning. If you've got a question or comment, feel free to give us a call on the other side of the upcoming break. It's 9:30 and it's 51. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Joining us in the studio, Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game, and he's also available to take some of your telephone calls as well at 736-0300, 736-0300. Trout in the classroom. What are you talking about
Well,
there?
no, I like to talk about this every once in a while. Trout in the classroom is we go into a lot of the junior highs in the Magic Valley. We have fish tanks in there, and we take eggs and they hatch out trout. Then we go in and we do a presentation with the kids on what it takes, kind of animal husbandry 101 for fisheries. We go in there and we talk about what the things that they need to survive in nature as well as in our hatchery systems and how we raise them. And then we go back and we take some fish in and we dissect them. And then we take about 2,600 kids fishing every spring. And so it's just one of those programs that is kind of fun. And if you uh, got a kid that's in the middle school around here, maybe you ought to ask them about it. It's kind of see what they're getting out of it, see if it's worth our time.
And then you've got some classes coming up as well.
And I wanted to throw this out there. If you got a school teacher or a friend that's working on an education degree, we're offering a Wild About Mule Deer and Grouse. We're going to be talking mostly about sage grouse workshop on the evening of April 7th and the most of the day on the 8th. What we're going to do is we talk about uh, their life cycles, what it takes for them to survive. We try to give teachers classroom uh, ideas to be able to work with their students on. The cost of the class is $40, and if you want to get one credit of continuing education credits from NNU or BSU, it's $60 for that one credit. So it's a pretty cheap credit if you're needing something in that way. But if you're interested, call us at the regional office at 324-4359, or that's probably the easiest thing. And then I can give you Lori Adams. She's our education manager out of Boise. She's the one who's taking registrations, but I'll be there helping teach the class.
And then the last thing on your agenda at the moment, and we're going to get into that fee topic coming up in a few minutes, planning projects.
If you're looking for something to give back, or if you've got a civic group or just a club or friends or family, or if you're just looking for something to do to get out and give back to wildlife, um, a lot of people don't know that we're a dedicated fund agency. The only people that pay for wildlife in the state of Idaho are hunters and anglers. If you don't buy a hunting license or if you don't buy a fishing license, we do not get any money for management of wildlife from you. There's none of that money that goes to it. We do not receive any state general funds. We do receive some federal excise taxes on people that buy firearms and boating equipment or fishing equipment. But it's hunters and anglers that pay for wildlife in Idaho. Um, we're actually having some bitter brush planting projects or trying to clean up some of the habitat from some of these big fires we've had. Um, we're going to be meeting outside of Murtaugh on Saturday over at Buckhorn. Um, if you've got a group that wants to come out on the 18th, you can do that. We'll be going out by Castle Ford Butte on March 25th if you're looking for something, or on April 1st, we're going to be out near Three Creek, Mud Flats along the Three Creek Highway near outside of Rogerson. If you're interested in participating in that, just call the regional office at 324-4359. Talk to Tanner Ray Alberti or Brad Lowe. Get your name on the list so that we know you're coming, so we know how many plants to have out there. But our goal is to get 250,000 seedlings in the ground, 270,000 seedlings in the ground this spring, and so it sure does make the job go quicker with more people out there,
Sure.
and I don't want to have to plant them all myself. No, I won't, but we'll be out there helping.
If people want, and for more details on this, they could go to the website too.
We don't. Well, there's some stuff on Facebook, on our Magic Valley Fish and Game Facebook, um, and there's probably an article on our webpage under Magic Valley. You just go to the Idaho fishandgame.idaho.gov, and then you can click on because I actually put one on there 2 weeks ago. Trying to remember everything, and then you can click on the Magic Valley region, and it'll pull up just a web page that's just dedicated to the Magic Valley. Show you some of the stuff that's going on.
We've got about a minute before we get to our next break, but we're going to be talking about. I've been tracking this through the legislature. There is a coming fee increase,
Hmm.
and that was a topic the last time you were here. So we'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes, and you may get some of those exasperated phone calls again. But it's a good opportunity to explain all of this.
And I don't get upset about those at all. I mean, people are entitled to their opinion. I understand that there's frustration there. There's always frustration.
Hmm.
I don't care if you're working with two people, one person is going to be frustrated. When you're working with, 300,000 people that hunt and fish, there's going to be 150 to 200,000 that are frustrated, if not more. And so, no, I have no qualms with people calling in on that. So, yeah, give us your calls and well, at least you can vent a little bit.
Yes, we've got more on the way with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. It's 9:40. Bill Colley with you as well on top story on News Radio. I almost said top 40.
Top 40. Well, I'm not going to sing.
Yes,
No.
News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And weather 51. Our studio guest is Kelton Hatch. He's here from Idaho Fish and Game for a few more minutes, and he's available to take some of your telephone calls, comments, and questions. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 51. Two things. There was a story that I saw this morning, recreational fishing in America, $115 billion pumped into the economy last year. $115 billion nationwide. So it
Yeah.
tells you big business.
Well, it is. And if you look at that, about 60 billion of it is actually in cash.
Yeah.
The others is the mysterious math that they do to show the trickle down of it, that I'm sure that it has that impact on it. But in the state of Idaho, we're over 3 billion on hunting and fishing
And
that comes to our economy.
nearly a million people nationwide employed because of recreational fishing. And
You,
then
you think about some of these small towns around here, they wouldn't exist without, salmon, Chalice, Riggins,
Buell.
Buell. Well, Buell to a point that because they raise fish and stuff like that. But when I'm talking just wildlife,
Mhm.
the outfitter economy, the tourist economy, just to come in and view wildlife and hunt it and stuff. It's huge in the state of Idaho.
And then Idaho also needs to keep an eye on what's going on and also has a lot of programs. And so there's going to be, looks likely now, it's going to happen. There's going to be some fee increases. We should point out there's also a story out this morning. Washington State has the very same needs,
Mm.
and they're going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Almost right now we're I think there was one state that had one tag that was less than I think it was deer tag in Wyoming was the only state that was cheaper than us, and even with the fee increase, we're still the most economical of all the western states across the board. What the fee increase is that they're proposing, that's been proposed, that's going through the Senate right now, is that if we're trying to pick up churn, and what churn is people that don't buy hunting and fishing licenses every year. I didn't really realize that this happened because I just figured everybody was like me. I have had a hunting and fishing license every year since I was 12 years old for the hunting license. And every year since I was 14 for a fishing license, I've never slipped out of the system. Well, maybe once or twice for when I was in college, but since then I've always had a combination of sportsman's package or something like that. I have less than a third of the hunters in Idaho and anglers do that every year. Most of them, 70% of our sportsmen buy a license once out of every 5 years. Our goal with this fee lock is to, if you buy a license this year, for the next 5 years, if you buy it every year, you pay the exact same price you're paying this year. You're not going to see a fee increase at all, other than they did put a $5. The legislature did throw a $5 fee in that will go to depredation to help because we put out almost $1 million in animal depredation on crops this year, and I know that opens a whole bag of worms sometimes on this, but a lot of our wildlife do live on private property, and so it's a good part of the bill. Um, the only people that it's actually going to see a fee increase is the people that are the churn that don't buy a hunting and fishing license every year or just move to the state and haven't got a history, and so they will be at the newer higher prices. Just to show you, it's about a 20% increase. A sportsman's package will cost $20 more for a sportsman's pack. That gives you your elk, deer, turkey, steelhead salmon, fishing, hunting, steelhead salmon. Did I say that? I probably said that. And then it gives you your muzzleloader and archery permits. Um, for a combination license is a $5 increase. For just a hunting license is a 3. For a junior fishing license, 225. For a deer tag, $5. Elk tag, $6. And so there will be some increase. And I understand it bites. But I guess when I look at my hunting, the single cheapest thing that I have invested in going hunting is my hunting license, bar none. I throw $100 of gas in my truck for a weekend, and I buy food that costs a lot more than $5 or $6, or even 35 or $40. And then you've got, if you got dogs, if you got a shotgun, if you got a bow, and and so it's just one of those things. And this is like kind of paying for the thing that enables us to be able to monitor wildlife. It's like I was saying earlier in the show. Um, since I've been at the department in the last 15 years, we've gone from about $350 an hour for a helicopter rental to over $1,000 an hour. And so that's where those fees go. And our fish, when you're raising fish, we're raising 18% less fish right now because feed prices went up by 200%. Um, and we've been really scrimping and scraping from other programs just to be able to keep fish production up that high. And so hopefully with this fee increase, we're going to be able to raise, with just locking people in, we'll be able to raise a couple million more and be able to boost our fishery productions and other things up.
I had years ago. I was working at a TV station, and I had to offer a new contract to one of our staff members, and I had been told by the company we're not going to offer them as much as they were getting because they're going to have a diminished role. I offered her the contract for less. She quit. And my boss said to me, he said, well, nobody wants to make less money. And clearly they don't want to pay more money. And that's
Hmm.
been, I think for a lot of people is just the thought of that, why that I think they understand that fees are going up because your costs are going up, but it's still not comfortable.
Well, it isn't, and it bites. I hate paying more myself. I really do. But at least it's going to something that I guess I believe in wholeheartedly, in management and the North American plan of management of wildlife. Some people will disagree with the management strategies and things, but like I said earlier in the show, we can't make everybody happy. We try to make the majority of the people happy. We try to, I guess I would put us up against any other state. And if you're that disgusted with hunting in Idaho, pack your bags and move, because it's like we have more opportunity we have than anywhere around here. I mean, why, outside of maybe Wyoming, parts of Wyoming, but Utah and Nevada, you may get a hunt every 10 years. Granted, it's a different structure. We've got more wildlife habitat. Um, but if there is a complaint, come in and talk to us. Get involved in these public meetings. Our big game meeting at the Magic Valley office, we talked about it here a couple of times, had 6 people show up. In Burley, I had 2. So I had 8 people show up for bighorn sheep, mountain goat, and moose. That's all that wanted to come and say anything about the thing. For big game season setting, people that actually showed up at the meeting, we had like 28. We had more comments online. We had about 150 online, which was great to see. And so, but get involved.
We have a caller with us. A caller getting involved, actually. You're on the air at 9:51.
Good morning. I can understand fees need to go up and this and that, but if you're going to be jacking up fees and this and that, you need to make sure that your in-state hunters are happy. I haven't drawn for 8 years. I have a buddy that comes from California. He has drawn every year since we've been out of high school, which has been a long time. And I can't even get an open tag anymore. I go down to Sportsman's Warehouse and they're sold out online before I even get in. The store opens up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I
You're
understand.
not going to have people go to the other states. You're going to have people who get so discouraged they're going to start poaching more. You got to think about that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that call. I do, and I understand. This is one thing that, and I understand people wanting to draw these coveted tags and things like that. And I'm sure that he's talking about on the elk tag, he's talking about the Stanley Basin because those tags sell out overnight. It's tough. We are looking at, since I graduated from high school, there's about 780,000 people in the state of Idaho. 30 some odd years later, 34 years later or something like that, 35 years since I graduated from high school, maybe 36, we're at 1,750,000. So the state's growing by over 1 million people. Yeah, I don't know the answer to assure that everybody can get a 54 tag, or a 45 tag. I don't know how to make it better. The drawing system, um, the I don't see how it can help drawing odds other than on simple hunts. I played the points game in Nevada. I played it in Utah. I've dropped my points in Utah and stuff because every time I got close to drawing a tag in Utah, I would be at 5 years and it'd say, well, if you have 7 points, you'll draw this tag guaranteed. By the time I hit 7 points, it was 9 points, and then by the time it got to I got to 9 points, it was 15 points, and so you just never beat the curve. Um, and my father-in-law, he's got to hunt elk twice in Utah in the last 30 years since I've been married. He draws a tag and my wife's killed 8 on over-the-counter tags. We can buy tags over the counter here. I guess the thing is, I feel sorry. I understand this guy's situation. I guess what I would probably recommend is looking at some of the other areas that offer over the counter hunts. Lots of over the counter elk hunts over in eastern Idaho. We've got 3 or 4 bull hunts. The Frank Church has over the counter bull hunts. Little tougher country, more hiking. Lots of over the counter deer tags. I've been fortunate in my life. Killed 20 plus deer, but I've never drawn a controlled hunt for one. They've all been on over the counter hunts. And so we do have that opportunity. The Magic Valley is primarily controlled, and so that makes it tougher.
We have another caller. Caller, you're on the air at 9:54 on KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning, guys. Hey, I really appreciate you coming in and trying to answer these questions for fish and game issues. I'm not opposed to having fee increases. I understand that that's how things need to operate, but I don't really appreciate being petitioned for fee increases when I can see certain areas that can improve on efficiency. Just yesterday, I passed 3 fish and game vehicles with one person each in them, all driving to the same location, and to me, that's not super efficient. And as far as the fee increases go and to help cover the depredation costs, why is that stuff that strictly has to be passed on to the sportsman when there's people that don't enjoy hunting that still enjoy getting out and seeing the wildlife, especially these wolf activists that have partly caused the reason that these elk are being moved into areas that they've never been in before and causing part of the depredation problem? Is there any way we can go about getting any of these animal rights groups to help cover these depredation costs rather than just the sportsman themselves? Thank you.
Hey, great comments, and I appreciate it. Yes, I will be the first to admit there is ways that we could be better fiscally with our funding. yesterday, what I'm guessing you saw is we had some employees that we took one truck to Boise. I wasn't involved in it. And then they brought 3 trucks back because we've got our sage-grouse technicians. We've got 8 sage-grouse technicians that'll be working out in the desert trapping all night. They went back and picked up trucks yesterday in Boise and were coming down 84, and that's the way it was. We had 3 guys driving behind. And every once in a while you do see that. You'll see the same thing today because we're out at Bliss Point. Um, as soon as I'm done with this show, I'm going to be riding out there by myself to go out and take lunch to about 150 kids from high school out there that are helping us plant bitter brush. But I do know that we could do things, but we do try. I know that I try my hardest to be as frugal with my state spending as I do with my personal spending. But sometimes we do have poor spending ideas, and I would agree with that. But on the animal rights groups and the elk and deer coming down on these farms and stuff, it's really tough because it's really a hard balance. A lot of sportsmen don't want to see money coming from other entities other than them because they feel that it gives them more juice when it comes to managing wildlife in Idaho, um, lessening the voice of those that aren't paying. I don't know whether it does or not for sure, but that is one thing we've looked at trying to do is expand funding. We actually tried to put a user fee for non-hunting licensed people on our WMAs that wasn't okay to go through the legislature just 2-3 years ago, trying to raise money just for the bird watchers and the people that just recreate, walk their dogs, ride their horses and things down there, because we get a lot of non-hunting use on them. But um, that failed. And so if you have any ideas, any other ideas, bring them to us, take them to your legislators, and help us out.
I was going to say, that's where that input is necessary, and someone
It
may
is.
come up with a solution.
Yeah, sorry we didn't get to more of the calls, but I got a little long-winded. But I really appreciate the calls and people's interest in, hunting and fishing is just such a part of people's lives. It's such an emotional thing. I'm right there with you guys and gals. My wife will, my
Yeah,
daughters
she's.
will argue with you till they're blue in the face about good hunting and fishing and not being able to draw a stinking tag. So,
We'll see you again in a few weeks.
hey, sounds good, bud.
Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. Rush Limbaugh is up next following the news from Fox at 10 o'clock. Bill Colley with you again tomorrow, God willing, the creek don't rise. We expect to be joined by State Representative Ron Nate from Rexburg, as well as going to talk a little bit about firearms in hour number 2 of tomorrow's program.